guys, this is Sam with ballardphotovideo.com, and this week we're going to be talking about aperture. Now, what is aperture? Aperture is in your lens. It's what's going to control the depth of field and the amount of light for your photos. Now, to keep things simple for this video, and we'll go and talk a little bit more in a different video about maybe some of the more technical sides of aperture and really break it down. In this one, I'm just going to talk about the uses of it very quickly and possibly some better ways for you to understand how you would use aperture in relation to some of the other shots that you may want to take. So, with aperture, the idea is that it's a hole that light goes through on your lens. So, what's going to happen is light rays are going to be coming in from an outside source, because of course nothing on, or not much unless it's radioactive, nothing on Earth is going to reflect light directly off, or it's not going to create light, excuse me. But what it's going to do is it's actually going to reflect light into your lens. Now of course there are exceptions. I'm not directly talking about flashes or things like that, flashlights. But in the natural world, the light's going to be reflecting off of something coming in your lens, okay? And this is going to be how you're actually going to be capturing the image from what you're looking at. So, what you're going to do is you're going to decide, now do I want a shallow depth of field or do I want to be able to see the background in focus, okay? Now, what a shallow depth of field is for example, you have right here, let's just pretend, when you stop your aperture to, for example, 2, okay? Wide open aperture for most lenses. Actually, most beginner lenses are going to be more around like the 4 f5.6 range, but let's just pretend 2. Okay, that's going to be probably in focus. If you focus here, your nose right here may be out of focus. Now, I'm not going to go into the calculations for the actual depth of field for each shot in this video. We'll talk about it in another video probably. But what you want to do is you want to decide on how much you actually want to focus. So for example, if you want to be able to see the entire person or pet or whatever you're shooting, tree, background, if you want to see everything in focus, for example, for me, you may want to shoot more like around f4, okay? If you want to blur out my eye versus my nose and you want to get right in there, you may want to shoot like f2. If you want to see the entire background, so you're looking way off in the distance, you see the tree line, you have your subject here, and you want everything in focus, which is not common, but if you wanted to do that, you would shoot all the way up at probably around f11, maybe even higher, you could go as high as if you wanted to, like f22, but I highly doubt that you'd want to shoot everything that tack sharp unless you are doing some form of landscape portrait or landscape photography. And in that case, most people do shoot in f22 in that range, or whatever the case is, if they have a preference, but it's going to be wide open. They want to have everything in focus. So, not only focus, like I've been talking about, but the aperture does control the amount of light that comes in your lens too. Now, again, most beginner level lenses are going to be letting in around f4, 5.6. They may be variable, so you may end up having like f4 at wide open, and if you zoom in, it may go up to a 5.6 or whatever the case is, and that's not going to let in a whole lot of light. You can double the amount of light by going to a 2.8. So for example, a lot of people, the way they go is they'll probably upgrade from, for example, their kit lens, which is going to be either f4, f5.6 in that range, and then they would go to, for example, a 2.8. Or a lot of people like the Nifty 50 from Canon, for example, the 50mm that can go to a 1.8, I believe. Don't quote me on that. And the actual amount of light coming in is going to be way more for your shots. So for example, you can lower your ISO, or for example, you can raise your shutter speed so you can capture motion at night a little bit easier. Now obviously 2.8, you're still not going to be going out shooting in the dark, but you're going to be able to see things a lot better, going to have a lot easier time with that. And for example, even what you're doing outside, if you're doing a portrait outside, if you shot at 2.8, you could drop your shutter speed, or you could raise your shutter speed up, do like for example 200, 1/200 or something, and then you could also raise your ISO or lower your ISO to around like the 100 mark, and be able to get the whole shot in. It's going to be a very clean image, and you could do that in the evening, for example, and be able to see everything really well. And that's the route I would take with something like that too anyways. So it'd be a little easier to take your subject out of the background and make them the focus. So I hope this gives you a better idea about what Aperture is, what it does for you with your camera, and maybe some of the options as far as the creativity side of it goes. We're going to talk a little bit more in our next video about shutter speed. Then we're also going to have a video installment soon about ISO and how all of these things play a part together in creating the images that you guys actually want to create. So, like always, you guys can check us out at ballardphotovideo.com. This is Sam, and we will see you guys next week.